Welcome, Chiefs Kingdom, to another edition of the Out of Structure podcast. I'm Matt Stagner here with Ron Kopp Jr. celebrating another Chiefs victory in the playoffs, another AFC Championship game. Ron, did you ever think it could be like this as a Chiefs fan?
Not growing up. No, sir, Stags. No, sir. I mean, I grew up rooting on Tyler Thigpen was my favorite player growing up. Colby Smith, shout out back in the day, little nifty running back, Brody Croyle, those days. I mean, this is amazing, Stags. And honestly, I know beating the Bills 27-24 in the divisional round, moving on to 6th consecutive AFC Championship, watching that game, Stags, was as intense, as just gripping, as getting me up out of my. I mean, I wasn't sitting. I mean, I was rarely sitting except to do my live blog, and even then I was doing it standing sometimes. I mean, Stags, that was as fun of as a game. Fun is a certain word to use, with some of the moments in that game. But I don't know. That was just it was fun to kind of be in that back against the wall, on the road kind of mentality, and see the Chiefs pull that out.
Yeah, it was stressful. It was heart pounding. It was a nail biter through and through. But the vibes, we keep going back to the vibes here, Ron. The last 3 weeks, the vibes around this team have been so good. It felt, looking back at that game, I was like, I don't know that I was ever petrified that they were going to lose that game. It was just it was close. It was intense. It was a great game. It was back and forth. I think the only time I really worried about the outcome of the game was that one sequence, which I know we'll talk about later, where the team had so many chances to put this Bills team away. So you're going to hear a lot of the media narrative, a lot of the Bills fans talking about they had a few missed opportunities. They were like, hey, if Stephon Diggs makes that catch, if this or that. But if the Chiefs had capitalized on their opportunities there late in the game, this was at least a 2-score game coming down the stretch, and it wouldn't have been as heart-pounding as it was. But as it turns out, it was a great game, a lot of fun to watch, and just couldn't be a better time to be a Chiefs fan at this point.
Well, no, but to your point though, in terms of being confident going into this game, because I was, as someone that has talked all year about, this team maybe not having enough, I think this game in particular, going into Buffalo where all that pressure was on them, they had some injuries as well. But to speak to the confidence of the team, I mean, first of all, Mahomes, is obviously just a confident player, but, just he was fired up, obviously. He had after the game, he clearly heard Deion Dawkins talking about, good luck, dealing with the Buffalo crowd. He had the Instagram post, with those quotes there. But also Chris Jones, too. I was a little worried about the big guy being a little too amped up. There was a video going around from James Palmer before the game where Chris Jones was just, flipping off the crowd, giving them some not nice words, before the game, kind of as they were warming up. And that's the kind of fire and confidence they have as a team, though, that they are the bad or the villains. I think they're just now embracing the bad guy role, but I think it's not necessarily being the bad guy that they're embracing. I think it's just more about being the better team and knowing it, and knowing they're going to come into your house and do that. And it was just cool to see them truly come into Buffalo's house and just take it from him.
Yeah, it was as hostile of an environment as they're going to play in.
It was too. It really was. I mean,
snowballs flying, the crowd.
He couldn't even get to his people after the game. Did you see? He was ducking snowball. I mean, hey, that's one way to handle a loss, I guess, Buffalo. But no, I mean, I think that just tells you where this team's at. Just being at the top.
And it was chippy on the field too. There were plenty of scuffles. There were a lot of mouths running in this game as well. So it was, call it a rivalry, call it whatever. I think Josh Allen probably is right that it's hard to call it a rivalry when the Chiefs just keep winning. That's not exactly what he said, but paraphrasing a little bit. So I do think this is a big turning point for this season. We've talked all season about how this has just been a rough year. It's been a transition year. It's been, a throw a bunch of stuff against the wall and see if it sticks year, especially when it comes to the wide receiver room. and most of it didn't stick. We begged all year openly on this podcast, focus on only the guys that can make plays. Focus on Pacheco, Kelsey, and Rashee Rice. Let everybody else just block or ride the bench. And frankly, that's a pretty close to what happened. Other than the 2 plays made by MVS this week, which he deserves all the credit in the world for, the offense is focused around the guys it should be focused around. They figured out who they are. They ran the ball well. They ran the ball in power situations and power alignments in ways that we've been asking them to. This is the Chiefs team that we wanted it to be all season long. Good defense, maybe great defense, confident Mahomes, everybody else having fun, a focused, offense that's a little bit more balanced than what we've seen in the past, and letting guys do what they do best. It feels like this team continues this trajectory of being, I don't want to say peaking at the right time. They're in the best place that they've been all season, and they're going to the AFC Championship game against the best team, arguably, in the NFL.
No, I think you can absolutely make the argument that they're peaking. And I think the main point of that is the offense, because I think this game just illustrates to you that, look, no matter how great your defense is, no matter how good of a year you're having as an NFL defense in today's world, like, you can't rely on them to always be holding teams down to 20 points. You could not expect the Chiefs to go into Buffalo and hold that team to 20 points, even though that's what I predicted. You can't bank on that, right? But what the Chiefs offense did is pick up the defense when it needed it, right? I mean, there was a back and forth there in the second and third quarters where, man, Buffalo was just putting it on to a point where the Chiefs offense, if it slipped up at all and at any of those points, it could have been disastrous. Yet they just stuck right with them, matched blow for blow. What happened? It happens every game apparently that this defense down the stretch this year. They settled in, they got stops, including that 4th down where they, the punt fake, where they were able to set the Chiefs up, the offense up to go score 2 touchdowns. But I want to make the point that, I really did believe the Chiefs offense was going to be able to take that game late. If the Bills were to make that field goal, they were playing well. Mahomes was playing well enough. The offense was playing well enough where I believed in them to go get that touchdown, end the game there, win it. But man, Stags, when he missed that field goal, when that kick went wide right, I took a lap around the house. I ran up the stairs. I was hooting and hollering because it as much of it is a buzzkill for like any casual fan watching, that field goal just like, completely ends the game when it looked like we might have like an overtime thriller on our hands.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, I felt like Mahomes. Mahomes popped up out of the bench and went wild because, hey, the game's over right then and there. And and that was a good feeling. But I was confident the offense was gonna pick the defense up if they gave up the points there. I'm sure you were too.
Yeah, I felt good about where they were in the game at that point. You hold your breath a little bit that Buffalo is going to make a late touchdown like they've done in the past. Again, if Gabe Davis had been on the field, I think that would have been even more of a concern. That guy just seems to come up with those big catches, late in the game. I did think the Chiefs had a good chance to answer. I didn't expect that field goal to go wide right. I was more shocked by it. I couldn't believe it. I wasn't even rooting for them to miss. I was like, all right, they're going to get the field goal. Chiefs will get the ball back. They'll still have plenty of time.
Right.
It's more than 13 seconds, so it's probably going to be okay. But yeah, that was a complete shocker. It took the air out of the stadium and really, changed the feeling of that game. And then you just knew they were handing the ball to number 10, and Pacheco was going to get that last first down. And it was, when we did winners and losers this week, Isaiah Pacheco, really, really one of the biggest winners of this game. Yes, he totaled 97 yards rushing, had 3 big runs, but that, the touchdown score that he had got hit really, really hard, popped right back up. And then when the game was on the line and they had to have a first down, he was an absolute machine on that last drive. I absolutely love that. Really, really nice game from not just Pacheco, but the entire Chiefs running offense and the offensive line as well.
Oh, absolutely. Second straight week, they really trusted the offensive line to do it themselves, which what I mean by that is, when the Chiefs run their zone concepts and run their zone runs, a lot of time it's play filler, right? It's just getting between pass attempts. It's kind of, hey, we want to get 5-6 yards. We're not really looking to get, big plays. But when they run gap runs, which is when you see them pulling players out into space, you see Trey Smith and Jawan Taylor down block and just take someone out of the way. And Trey loves doing that. You've seen him a couple times just bully guys like Christian Wilkins and Ed Oliver these last couple weeks, two really good players. When the Chiefs allow their offensive line to do that, that's when they're at their best in the run game. Jawan Taylor, too. Jawan Taylor has shown very good reps in the block in the run game recently, opening up spots. And it's not a mistake that, and this is a stat I pulled, Stags, which I thought this was really interesting. And we have a few stats, but this is actually the second interesting one. But on the Jawan Taylor point, the Chiefs ran the ball outside the tackle 8 times for 86 yards against the Bills. All four of the times they ran for 10+ yards, it happened off tackle. And that just tells you that this team was taking advantage of the Bills, light personnel. They had the backup linebackers, and they also had, they were forced to play in their nickel heavy defensive back formations because they had no linebackers, right? And so the Chiefs took advantage by getting their offensive linemen into space and their tight ends into space, blocking those smaller guys. And so that was really the big thing, was that the Chiefs got into a lot more tight end sets and then weaponized their offensive line. And here's the big stat, Stags, and this is where I want you to react, because this is something we've talked about all year, right? The Chiefs called a gap run on 12 of the 17 handoffs to Pacheco or Clyde versus Buffalo. That's only 29% of the handoffs were zone. Their season average for zone runs this year was 61%. So that tells you that there was a shift in how the team wants to use this run game, and it worked. So let's keep doing it, right?
Yeah, were they saving this up? Is this the thing that they save for the postseason? I don't know about that, but they saw something in the matchup, like you said, and a lot of the commentators nationally have noticed Creed Humphrey getting out and pulling after snapping the football on some of those outside tackle runs. To see the center, not a small center, moving like that and being out in front, out in space, and getting those what they thought for a moment were unblocked defenders. That was really good to see. They're clearly at their best, when they're able to do that. I don't know why they haven't done more of it. But it's all positive at this point, and the more gap runs they have, they can build off of that. They can play action off of that. They can have a balanced offense here. The zone runs, I was laughing when you said it was just filler in between the pass plays, because we've gotten to that point where we don't expect, at least from our perspective, we don't expect a lot of production on those outside zone runs, especially I love the guy, but especially when it's Clyde. Clyde's just not an outside zone, speed guy. He's not going to be able to turn that corner. Get him going downhill. Good things can happen. And they did this week, and not just, again, Pacheco was great, but Clyde had a 28-yard run that was beautiful. I mean, it was well blocked, but it was also a really good play by Clyde.
Well, the other wrinkle, too, you just touched on with the zone runs, is that a lot of times those zone runs are coming as an accessory to a pass route, right? You're running a slant concept. They're running a bubble route on the side. And, so they're technically, in offensive coaches' minds, they think, they're blocking the defensive backs by running routes and occupying them. But what happens is when they hand it off, there's no one blocking at the second and third level, so the runs go nowhere. When you run these kind of runs where there's no pass option tied to it, these receivers are blocking downfield, and MVS is a great blocker. Justin Watson's a strong blocker. Rice has struggled at times this year, but he is a bigger body that can definitely, occupy space. And honestly, the tight ends are all playing well in the blocking game. I think Travis had one missed block against Miami that is on my mind as we're talking about this. But this game, all 3 tight ends are doing very well blocking, opening up things. But I do want to touch on another wrinkle before we move on the run game that Jeff Schwartz pointed out that I thought was really cool. He tweeted this on after he was looking at the film. He said, "These little details are important. When it was loudest, Mahomes would dummy count walk to the line and ID a defensive player, even though some of those points were dummy IDs in the run game, the running back would follow him to listen, even if it was a run. That's important because most often we see a running back care about the ID and pass protection. So doing this every play doesn't give the Bills defense a run pass read. So that's something that the coaches, Pacheco, Mahomes, somebody thought through. And you watch the game, you watch it back, you'll see Pacheco go up and point out and go up to the line and really, be emphasized about it on every play. And that is a big thing because that could have easily been something where they didn't think about it. They haven't played in a road playoff game in so long. They haven't thought about having to communicate without vocalizing, right? So I thought that was a really cool thing that it kind of helped the Chiefs offense get going.
It's really fun to see this team execute and do the little things well. Sure, there were still a couple of mistakes, but they didn't turn the ball over other than that, the fumble out of the end zone. They didn't turn the ball over in any legitimate way where Buffalo took the ball away from them, right?
Yeah.
They had only, 2 penalties on the day? Is that right?
Yeah, because one of them was right before half. Yeah, that sounds about right. Maybe even one on offense. There probably was 2.
Yeah, so not a lot of penalties. It was a clean game. And I've been saying this all year. I don't care who the Chiefs are playing. If they execute and they execute the little things, they can beat anybody. And we'll talk about this next matchup because it is going to be a real interesting challenge for the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game against the Baltimore Ravens. But yeah, the Chiefs had 2 penalties for 15 total yards in this game. That's nice. a really nice turnaround. And you saw, Mahomes taking care of the football, throwing it away in the red zone when it wasn't there. There was those signs that they have turned this corner. And if this team is playing efficient, complementary football, they're running the ball well, they're not doing dumb things, they're not turning the ball over as much. That works. It's a winning formula, and it's a winning formula when you have Patrick Mahomes. So
yes, sir,
we did get a question. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I was just going to get right into it with Leon Mahomes asking us to comment on 15 as a quarterback, passer, and leader at Patrick Trotsky on Twitter. Appreciate you following my guy, because you're right. Because the run game is one thing, and that's how, you always hear about that's how you win in the playoffs. But, it really does take an elite quarterback. And so when you combine the two, that's truly how you win in the playoffs. And Mahomes was truly elite on Sunday night, I would tell you. 17 to 23 passing, 215 yards. That's 9.3 per attempt, 2 touchdowns, and 131.6 passer rating. It was his best game by rating of the season. And there's an argument to be made. It was his best game just overall in the season. But you hit on something, Stags. And this is something that points on him being a leader, being a quarterback, not just a passer. To his question, Mahomes is taking care of the football. And it's actually happening at a historic rate right now over his last 3 games. According to PFF, well, first of all, I should preface this by he has not thrown an interception over his last 3 starts. That goes back to that Bengals game at home, then the Dolphins game, then this game. 3 straight games without an interception. Take it a step further. PFF has him at no turnover-worthy plays in those 3 consecutive games at all. No turnover-worthy plays that just got dropped, no fumbles. It's the first time he's gone 3 games without a turnover-worthy play since the first 3 starts of his entire career, 2018. That ignores the 2017 game. But he is taking care of the football as much as he ever has. And yes, it results in throwaways at times. Yeah, it results in, not take shots into the end zone. Although he had them this game, he just missed them, which he can correct that. But what it does is it doesn't lead to a backbreaking turnover. It doesn't lead to, not getting points in a crucial moment. And that it definitely speaks of him being more than just a passer. He is captaining this team. He is managing this offense at what you just talked about, with just having to play dirty or not dirty, but play, it's going to be not a clean game. It was a clean game. I am not saying that well, but Stags, you know what I'm talking about. He played very clean football the last 3 games, and it was really emphasized this game.
Yeah, they're playing clean football, and it may not result in the gaudy stats that you've seen in the past, right? So Mahomes this week, was definitely not a shootout. He had 215 yards passing, but Josh Allen had 186 yards passing. So when you've got a defense playing that well, you don't have to throw for 403 touchdowns to win. It doesn't end up being this back and forth shootout. You can play complementary football. You can play smart football and just bleed the other team dry and just make sure that there's no hope in the other team, that you're just going to give them something free, right? The only turnover was that McCole Hardman. So it was an ill-advised play call, right? They shouldn't have called it. They often call plays like that, but that should have been Pacheco finishing that drive like he started it. But I still hate that rule. I don't know if we have any questions about this week, but
no. But
that rule still drives me nuts. So I've heard all of the arguments for it, but when you fumble in the field of play, out of bounds, you retain possession. That's the way it is around the rest of the entire field of play on the football field. Yes, I know if you fumble in your own end zone, then it's a safety, right? That's a different scenario. But I don't understand this. It's too harsh of a penalty for a lost fumble that the other team didn't recover, to lose possession, to make it a touchback, not even give them the ball right there at the point where it went out of bounds. It doesn't make any sense to me. It never has. That's not just because the Chiefs it hurt the Chiefs this week that it bothers me. That rule I've always thought was ridiculous. And yeah, I mean that was the moment in the game where we maybe had a little bit of doubt. Not a lot, but a little bit of doubt.
Oh, you kidding me? I mean, I was as mad as a Chiefs game at a Chiefs game I've been in a long time when Andy called that in the red zone after McCole fumbled it the first time when they called it earlier in the game. Luckily, it got recovered. I could not believe it, Stags. And yeah, the first person to blame is whoever called that play. Whoever thought it was a good idea to call that play is the first person to blame. It is not McCole. It is not the rule. But I will tell you, McCole, like, that was ridiculous how hard he was trying to reach out. Like, he should have just freaking kept it tight. But I will say on the rule, like, the defense is so has so many no advantages, I should say, I guess, against an offense. Like, I like them having this one little thing, even though I do agree that it is kind of like, it is weird a little bit. I think a good alternative would just be the offense has to back up to the 20-yard line, like wherever the play happens, like you get a touchback, except, it's 20 yards your way. Not like all the way back. I'm saying like 20 yards to the end zone. So I think that's a reason.
Somebody else threw out there, maybe make it a 10-yard penalty on the offense and lost it down, something like that. Sure. I mean, it's still pretty harsh for a fumble out of bounds, which again happens all the time, and it doesn't hurt offenses at all. You can't advance the ball by fumbling it out of bounds, but you don't lose it either. So I don't know.
Well, but I guess it does. When we saw this game, is it de-incentivizes swatting it out of bounds to get the ball back. Maybe if you do fumble it near the end zone, maybe, or into the end zone instead of trying to recover, you just bat it out into the. That does de-incentivize that, because we saw in this game Jamari Conner, who was one of your winners, forced a fumble, and the guy had to bat it out of bounds, but that was illegal touching. Backed up the Bills right away. So maybe there is something to that, it's just the offense would have an advantage where if it was fumbled into the end zone, instead of trying to recover that, they could just, bat it out of bounds. But
the offense recovering in the end zone would result in what? A touchdown. So
but you got to protect it. The end zone's got to mean something. I mean, I do kind of understand that part of it, that the end zone is a special part of the field that means it has different rules, and because it has points involved. But let's keep going. Let's keep going instead of I don't think people have had enough of that talk, I'm sure. Because before we get too far after Mahomes and the passing game, we'll talk about Travis Kelce MVS here too. Just, it was so nice to have it as efficient as it was. And this is what I talk about with efficiency. Mahomes on non-screen passes, PFF was able to isolate those 19 dropbacks. He completed 12 of 17 passes for 197 yards. That's 11.6 yards per attempt and a touchdown. All 12 of those completions either resulted in a first down or a touchdown. So that means every time Mahomes was tasked with just dropping back, reading a defense, and making a play, every time the ball was caught, it was a first down or a touchdown. And so obviously there were times he missed a throw. There were times it wasn't open maybe, and it was a throwaway or incompletion. But that's efficiency. That's not messing around. Yeah. And another thing is when the Bills only blitzed Mahomes twice, and both times he found a completion for a first down. So even when the Bills tried to heat him up, didn't work. Just absolute nails game from Mahomes. So yeah. What'd you think about his game, and then maybe Travis and MVS's performances?
Yeah, I mean, Mahomes as a passer, as you said, very efficient, very clean. As a leader, I mean, come on, this guy is the ultimate competitor. I love that. Was it Rich Eisen or somebody else was talking about how Mahomes is almost coming up with narratives to be pissed off about. Like he was, standing in the locker room when they were breaking the team down, and he was like, they wanted it or they asked for it, they got it.
Yes,
it was bring that up. He brings that competitive fire that previously called a competitive prick, like the guy you want on your team, the guy that is, will absolutely do whatever it takes to win a game all the way down to the wire. He's a guy you can always count on. I mean, I don't know who else you would ever want behind center of your team. As you start racking up the postseason stats and the record books, the wins, whether that's a quarterback stat or not in the playoffs, it's not a coincidence that some of the greatest quarterbacks of all time have been winners in the playoffs and winners when it mattered. And Mahomes is one of those greats now. He's right there with Montana, right there with Brady. He's got a little ways to go on Brady, but he's on pace, and he's young enough that he has a chance to get to that point. I mean, the fact that he and Travis Kelce are already the most prolific touchdown scoring duo in postseason history, passing Brady and Gronk, which was a pretty big accomplishment in and of itself. That's something special, and none of this happens without Mahomes. You can talk about the defense all day, the running game, whatever. If it's Alex Smith behind center, love Alex Smith, did a lot for this team. If it's your guy Brody Croyle or Tyler Thigpen, this team's probably not even in the playoffs. But if they are, they're not going to necessarily come through in the clutch. Mahomes, with about 2 exceptions in his entire career, has been as clutch as anybody we've ever seen. And so what do you want from your quarterback? A great passer, clutch, competitor. By the way, when he needs to run the ball, he can do it as well as anybody. That's 15 in a nutshell.
Hey, Tyler Thigpen never had the supporting cast that he needed to take advantage of his skills. I mean, put him in this offense. Yeah, I don't know, man. Tyler Thigpen had some guts. That guy, he could have had that scramble Mahomes had. He could have took off like that.
Yeah, he could have almost done what Blaine Gabbert did in Week 18. I mean,
13 points, 13-12.
Well, talking about the pass catchers, the efficiency does also come down to whether the guy on the other end makes the play or not. Right. And the guy that we've been just beating up all season long, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, comes through with 2 really nice catches, at least one of them that was highly contested, both beautiful throws by Mahomes down the field. So he still only caught 2 of 4 passes, but both of those were big plays, and they were important plays, and they were, it took some skill to execute those. We got to give MVS credit for this is the version of MVS that you want. 2 catches, 62 yards, 31 yards per catch on 4 targets. He's not a high volume guy. They limited his snaps. This was, I think, the least snaps he's had all season.
Yes.
But he made 2 plays and 2 plays when they mattered. And if that's what you get from MVS, that's what you're paying for. That's what he's here for. And he executed it very well this week.
Yeah, no, this is what we've been calling for Justin Watson should be the guy playing more snaps, but MVS still has a role as a deep route runner because he runs the routes well. What he does at a catch point has been suspect this year, but he runs the routes well. And yeah, you're right. Season low 17 snaps. And so he actually averaged 4.4 yards per route this game, which is only the second time this season he's averaged over 2 yards per route, which just tells you that this is the efficiency that we need to see from him. And he could have had a touchdown pass. We talked about the throw earlier, or touchdown catch. Mahomes just missed him, so he could have had an even better day.
Yeah.
So this is the kind of role he should be playing, a low volume, but when he's in, run those vertical routes. And Buffalo gave Mahomes those opportunities to test him, and so he took advantage.
And Travis Kelce was playoff Travis again. I mean, we've talked about the decline, and I think he can use that famous quote of reports of my demise are premature, right? Because Travis Kelce looked like Travis Kelce of old. Sure, the touchdown he had was completely wide open. You got to give him some credit for getting open there and executing on that. But blown coverage aside, you saw that fire from Kelce. You saw him catch 5 of 6 of his passes. Probably should have caught the 6th one too, if I remember correctly. But this was a good Travis Kelce playoff game with 2 touchdowns to go along.
Yeah, no, I'm glad we need to talk about Travis's game for a second, because the one thing I thought very interesting about it was that his staple play in this offense and something that he has attacked Buffalo with, Mahomes and him connect on all the time against any defense, is that intermediate crosser, and they did not hook up one time on it. It wasn't even targeted. It wasn't targeted at all. He might have run one, but it was not a targeted route for him. All of his routes, he started on one side and he went to the outside to the sideline, like more of like a traditional tight end, something that you see more of in a traditional offense, with a non-Travis Kelce tight end. It's because Rashee Rice is now running a lot of those crossing routes. It's not because Rashee Rice is kind of the guy that can make the biggest play on those. And that's kind of a switch up, and defense may not be used to that. And so that's why you see maybe, him get open on these plays. I will say number 52, AJ Klein, was a big reason why Kelce was able to find space on a few of these. But on that wide open touchdown, it was actually a great play call design. It was it was supposed to be a smash concept, which is basically, you have a route to the flat and then a route to the corner, and you're putting stress on that cover 3 cornerback who either has to come up hard on the out route or come up or play deep on the corner route. But what they did is they added in a third route, which threw the safety for a loop. So the third route just kind of run a stop route inside of the out and then under the corner route. And so the safety jumped, the corner kind of played under too. All of a sudden, no one was there to play Travis Kelce. So it was kind of a great play design by Andy as well. It's kind of a simple thing, but something that throws defenses for a loop apparently. But I do think that kind of played into the Bills' injuries in the secondary, and that was just something throughout this game, is that Buffalo was just very banged up, and the Chiefs took advantage.
You like to see that, though. I mean, I feel like the Chiefs have been on the other end of that too much in our history as fans to sit and watch this team get picked apart when there's an obvious weakness and the other team targets that weakness over and over again. I like to see the Chiefs being the one doing the targeting and picking out that opportunity and hammering it. That's a Bill Belichick, staple. That's something that other teams have always done to Kansas City.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is we've been talking so much offense. I think it is time to talk a little defense, because a guy like Chamari Connor was the team's 3rd leading tackler. Him and Justin Reed had a very good games. They were my co-defense players of the week for me in the Insta breakdown, because Connor was a standout. That forced fumble on the first play was awesome, but I think Reed definitely had a good game as well. So shout out those two. But I do think I really want to get to Chris Jones's play, because we talk about Chris Jones coming in with a lot of attitude, a big time, he was hyping up, he was getting with the crowd. And, he was quiet for a lot of the game, wasn't he? Like, you didn't see a lot of Chris Jones. The Bills pass protection was definitely holding a lot of the Chiefs pass rush at bay, but they kept chipping away. And you saw it at the end of the game on that drive. Chris Jones lines up outside, and bullies Deion Dawkins to the point where he forces Josh Allen off of his platform, off his spot, throws an incompletion. Where honestly, on the back end, Connor was kind of got turned around, and so it could have been a touchdown. And kind of ruined Connor's big day. So I don't know. It's just one of those things where Chris Jones, there's a lot of talk about how he went so long without a playoff sack, and he was quiet this game. There was a lot of talk on Twitter. Man, I think he just comes up in the right moment, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's the closer. Frank Clark isn't here. Chris Jones is now the blood in the water guy. And yeah, he did it with a bull rush from the outside. And I saw somewhere where he actually talked about how he played inside all game. And even the coaches had said, hey, maybe we should slide you out. And he said, let's wait. Let's wait for the right moment. And man, it paid off. So you don't always love him on the edge, but you know that he can take that tackle and just walk him back in the quarterback's lap. And he just did that. He just decided that's what I'm going to do. And then he did it. So yeah, you love that from him. I'll even take the attitude, man. Get people fired up, whatever it takes. I think he's going to be key this next week as well. Tell you what, while we're one more positive, and let's get to break, and then we'll come back and we'll bring everybody down. Harrison Butker, made his 2 field goals, including a 47-yarder, made all his extra points. He's kicked through bad conditions the last couple of weeks and has been nails. And in a day where all the stories are about the Buffalo kicker missing the field goal at the end of the game, it's nice to have your reliable Harrison Butker getting the job done through whatever conditions. He's the mailman at this point, right? Rain, sleet, or snow, negative 20-degree temperatures. Butker's come through for this team. I had to laugh a little bit about Tony Romo early in the broadcast said the Chiefs chose the wrong end of the field. With this win, they're going to be in trouble kicking in the fourth quarter. And then, of course, it was Buffalo that missed with the wind at their backs in the fourth quarter of that game. It is it's a testament to the preparation and to the execution of the special teams across the board. But of course, Harrison Butker was just nails once again in the postseason.
No, we take it for granted. I mean, for sure. I mean, as a franchise that has seen some kickers cost us some moments. Definitely cool that we have the kicker that does not. It seems like to this point, knocking on wood, because he is. For all the extra points he'll miss, for all the random field goals and non-clutch moments he'll miss, he rarely misses it when it matters.
Yeah, I mean, he got him to the Super Bowl last year and won the Super Bowl last year, right? With kicks to go ahead and to tie. So this is a player that is not automatic, but man, only 2 missed kicks all season. It's pretty darn close. You have an NFL player. What NFL player am I this week? Somebody who maybe played for both the Chiefs and their upcoming opponent, the Baltimore Ravens.
Yes, sir, Sags. You got to tell me, what NFL player am I? I was drafted by the Chiefs and started immediately in the secondary, but did not stay in case he passed my rookie deal. Went to start for another team, but after that team is when I landed with the Ravens as a veteran playmaker and stuck around for a few playoff runs. Who am I? You got to tell me on the other side.
Stick with us on the Out of Structure podcast. We'll be right back. And we're back. Thanks for hanging with us on the Out of Structure podcast. Matt Stagner here with Ron Kopp Jr. He's trying to stump me once again with what NFL player am I? Someone who played for both the Chiefs and the Ravens. My head immediately went to, for some reason, fullback LaRon McClain. I know that's not the answer to this question. But before you gave any hints, I was thinking of LaRon McClain, somebody who I was super excited when he signed with the Chiefs. I thought that was a big deal. There's also Terrell Suggs, right? But again, he started off with the Ravens and came to the Chiefs later on. I'm guessing that you're talking about someone who the Chiefs drafted, who was a playmaker. Was it Marcus Peters?
No, sir. I led you down that trail. I led you down the trail. You took the cheese. You ate it. No, this is Brandon Carr. Shout out Brandon Carr. Back in the day, he did start immediately for the Chiefs, even though he was a 5th-round pick. He did not stay in case past his rookie deal. Went to the Cowboys. Marcus Peters went to the Rams, and then they both ended up on the Ravens as their third team.
All right. Hold the okie doke on me here.
Well, I had to. I was thinking of Ron McClain though, and I was also thinking of Kelly Gregg. Would that have got you?
Oh yeah,
Buddy Kelly Lee. Gregg for
Buddy Lee is what they called him, right? All right. So let's get to some folks who maybe didn't fare quite as well this last week. We've already talked enough about it that I don't want to beat him up too much more. Mecole Hardman touched the ball twice, fumbled on both of them. One of them was that touchback that just could have derailed this game. They could have been putting the game away at that point. That could have been a momentum killer. If the defense hadn't stepped up on that very next drive, it would have been a real concern. Really frustrating game for Mecole. I'm not sure what role they really have in mind for him. He's been pretty frustrating since they traded for him and brought him back.
Yeah, no, they can't figure out that gadget, that kind of slot position that just does the jet sweeps, that does kind of the little stuff that Kadarius Toney was doing, that Sky Moore was sometimes doing, that Mecole. They just can't figure it out. And they're evolving the offense to not even have it, right? And when we're seeing that, there's not as much pre-snap motion, and when they do it, it's not as effective. So definitely cool with Mecole not maybe being as big a part of the offense in the next game or two.
It's too bad too, because if you look back, I think I saw some previews of Chiefs Ravens, and they were showing highlights of one of the last times they played. Mecole was getting open deep and making big plays for this team as a rookie in 2020 against the Ravens specifically. So, like, you would love to see him just be a big play threat and make his contribution, kind of like MVS, where you don't rely on him all the time, but every once in a while he gets loose and something good happens. I would love to see that. I'm just losing faith that that's going to happen. The other downer for the week, I thought, in the losers category, was just the Chiefs' run defense as a whole. Buffalo really focused on the run. This is a team that didn't used to run the ball super well, but they've got a young guy in Cook that can get it done, and they've really focused on the run. They ran the ball 39 times against the Chiefs and had some success doing so, to the point where there was a lot of folks worried about it. I think the broadcast brought it up and others. This was something that could have skewed the scale or tipped the scales in the Bills' direction as well. Being able to run against the Chiefs, and specifically having a quarterback that can run against the Chiefs, because if you look at the stats from this past week, James Cook was effective, but he only had 64 yards on the ground. Josh Allen had 72. This is a Chiefs team that's giving up some yards on the ground to rushing quarterbacks, and at times they have trouble stopping the run. Sure, Derek Nottie was out. They had some other personnel. They were playing a little bit lighter than what you would typically expect. But is the run game going to be an Achilles heel for this team?
Dude, I don't really understand their thought process on Neil Farrell not playing over Matt Dickerson, someone that's been around, I guess, with the team a little longer, but Farrell's been here since training camp, or since week 1 now. And he showed out in the Chargers game to me as big body, as a Mike Pennell type. And that's the kind of bodies they needed in a game like this. But I guess they were maybe, trusting that the run offense would do enough, or run defense would do enough, where they just need, I guess, lighter bodies, more flexible bodies, because Dickerson can play a little more versatile than Farrell can maybe. All that to say is this is my party pooper, is because as much as they struggled here, Stags, with the Bills running game, the Ravens running game is a different animal. It really is. And it's not just because of Lamar Jackson. It's actually just because of how they run it, their scheme. But it is a lot of Lamar Jackson too, because, he is a much different kind of running threat than Josh Allen. He is much more of an actual, and, this is not to say he's a running back, but he is much more like a running back when he's actually running with the ball. Josh Allen is much more. Josh Allen's like an ostrich. I know someone makes that comparison, but he just runs around like a, just like a freaking ostrich. Just like, how can you tackle an ostrich? Like, you got to wrap up the legs. Like, that sounds terrible. But Lamar,
I did not expect the ostrich comparison there. I was thinking fullback, but yeah, ostrich is that's a good visual.
There's somebody in national media that makes that comparison, and it's Nate Tice, I think. Nate Tice says it, and it's very accurate. But to me, Lamar is much more of a true running back. But you have to account for his threat in a much more different way than you do with the Bills. You have to actually be ready for true, like college run type of stuff where it's a lot of options, or and not to say they do that as much as they used to, but they still will pull it out. You noted, especially in the red zone, right? Or in situational moments, third and short, third and medium. It's going to put a lot of stress on these linebackers, but the defensive line is also getting stressed, with the point of attack. The line's going to be going one way, the ball could be going the other way. It's just going to be a much tougher time for the defensive line, and they already and the defensive front in general manipulated in that way. But the Ravens could be a little more explosive, because that's one thing, Stags, that I meant to hit on. The Bills did not have one explosive play, one play that you categorized as explosive.
Yeah.
And that's a huge thing in a game, obviously. So the fact that the Ravens might be able to do that a little more on the ground, make some of those plays turn into explosives. That's where I'll be a party pooper here, is that this Chiefs run defense really looked a little exploitable.
Yeah, and again, the personnel packages were notable. It really did look like they were playing with light fronts, and when you've got Tershawn Wharton and Matt Dickerson on the field, that's just not going to be your elite run defenders. It's just not going to happen. Maybe when they commit to it, they can make a stop, and I think they did make some big stops. They had some tackles for losses. They had some big stops when they needed it. So maybe it's not as big of a deal. It sort of kept this game a little bit slower, a little bit more of a grind on the Buffalo offense side. Maybe that ended up not being a bad thing, even though they dominated time of possession. It kept this from being a true shootout where maybe the Chiefs felt like they had to press with some of their downfield throws, and they didn't have to do that because of the running game on both sides of the football. But it's going to be a different story against the Ravens. One way or the other, this is going to be a big factor in the AFC Championship game. Now, before we get too deep into the Ravens, though, we got a few more questions here from the folks, so we should dive in and talk a little bit more. There's a couple of questions about this game and really kind of going forward. So Eric at EMH 1729, will the interior offensive line be okay without Joe Thuney? As most of you know, Joe Thuney left the game with a pectoral injury. Often when you hear that, you assume, especially for an offensive lineman, that means torn pec. That means out for as close to a full year as you can get. That's a very important muscle for the blocking process. Turned out it was more of a strain, so he may still be able to play, and knowing Joe Thuney, he probably will. But it still feels to me like the offensive line is, at least on the interior, still has enough depth to overcome that. Nick Allegretti stepped in and made a couple of key blocks. So you've got a really good player as a backup if Thuney's not able to play, right?
Yeah, that's the thing with Thuney, is he's always been a luxury at the left guard position. But traditionally in an offense, especially, this kind of offense, a left guard specifically is kind of that one spot you can kind of get away with, maybe not the strongest player, especially when you have Creed Humphrey to his right and, a veteran and Donovan Smith. I think, obviously you'd like that to be, a little bit stronger to just say you can throw anybody at left guard. All that to say, Nick Allegretti is probably like one of the best depth guards the NFL has in terms of, having someone that can just plug and play right away.
Because you can play center as well. Yeah,
exactly. So the Chiefs are very well set up if Thuney does need to miss some time, because I think Allegretti is a great, and left guard is kind of his natural spot. That's what he was starting at with the Chiefs during that the one stretch he was starting in 2021.
Yeah, it's ironic that the one position on the offensive line you think they can get by without the best player is one where they've paid Joe Thuney a massive contract. But I think he's a valuable player for this team. His leadership, his pass protection, his ability to help some of the young guys get better, I think is underrated. Something else that's underrated from this game Ed Holinsky's question, when are the Chiefs going to hire Jason Kelsey to accentuate the fan experience? Everybody saw Jason Kelsey, Travis's brother, jump out of the box that he was in, shirtless, slamming beers, talking shit to the fans, jump back into the box. Man, he was having fun.
No, that was awesome, dude. I just writing and looking up at the TV and seeing, him just going crazy with his shirt off, looking like, someone made the T-Rex, the T-Rex in Jurassic Park comparison, just letting out that roar, just, little King Kong action or something. Not a bad idea. Hey, if he really does retire, he better be at Arrowhead next year. Cause I'm a believer that Travis has years in him, unless we win the Super Bowl this year. I could see him maybe riding off on the sunset, but Jason's got to come hang out with the Arrowhead next year if he really does retire. Come hang out with the party next year.
From now on, he's a Chiefs fan, the pride of Philadelphia. Just one more reason for Philadelphia fans to hate the Chiefs. The Chiefs are becoming that villain in a lot of ways here, right? Jake Wilson, our guy at Jake for Now, he asked about Shamari Connor, who we just talked about. Should he play the bulk of the defensive snaps next season? I think you've seen enough from Connor over the last few weeks to give you some hope that maybe the Chiefs have done it again with a mid to late round secondary player that could really be a difference maker going forward.
Well, I'll tell you, the thing that kind of does make this make sense is that, with the positions they have next year, the guys under contract are Justin Reed and Brian Cook. And Justin Reed is going into his final year of his deal. Justin Reed obviously is much more of a strong safety than he is the free safety type. B. Cook is more of a free safety. And so Connor is more of a strong safety type. Obviously has shown that he can play from depth, but a lot of times he is playing kind of close to the box. He needs to be help against the run. You put two and two together, the Chiefs can save, a significant amount, about $10 million next year if they cut Justin Reed. And Shamari Connor is a very natural replacement for the position he plays. And if he continues to show what he's shown when he's been asked to step up, then this is a way that teams like the Chiefs that need to save all the money they can are going to have, it's going to be a decision they almost have to make, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's two players that the Chiefs could let go and save substantial money against the cap. One's Marquez Valdez-Scantling. The other is Justin Reed. Each of them saves over $10 million against the cap with not a big dead money figure for either. It is something to watch in this offseason. And you're right. I mean, I think you want Shamari Connor on the field. And when Cook is back, you got Cook and Connor. They can build around those guys. They'll have options here, even if Justin Reed isn't on the roster. You saw it with Mike Edwards. They can find guys, off the street or close to off the street that can be that third or fourth safety without a huge investment. So I like that idea. I think that's a good long-term roster building expectation for this team. Now, talking about long-term roster building, Jake also asked, how would you prioritize re-signing Mike Dana, Willie Gay Jr., and Drew Tranquill if each has a comparable expected contract? I'm not sure they would have comparable contract expectations, but if they did, all other things equal, who would you want to pay amongst Dana, Gay, and Tranquill?
Well, I know. I mean, yeah, the contract thing is interesting because what I would say is like someone like Tranquill, I do think this offseason might get more of a market where like a team might want to actually pay him as like their middle linebacker, and those guys get paid. It's the outside linebackers, kind of the weak side linebackers that are kind of you can get cheap, and that's maybe what he was considered the first go around. Now I think the spotlight's been put on him where I feel like he might demand a bigger deal, a multi-year deal this offseason. So all that to say though, Tranquill would be my number one, honestly, just because he is he's such a versatile player, and that's what the Chiefs want in all of their players on defense, no matter what position you're playing. He's someone that can fill the run, that can play in coverage, that can get sideline to sideline, and he's smart, and he can be the dime linebacker if or just a middle linebacker, in case Bolton gets hurt, like we saw all year. So all that to say, I'd say Tranquill, then Dana, then Gay, because I think Gay is someone that I am a huge fan of as watching him play. But Leo Chenal is a very natural replacement for what he's done. And I'm excited to see Leo kind of step up in that respect.
Yeah, I would be tempted to say Mike Dana in this scenario because, pass rushers are expensive. And if he's got a relatively cheap contract expectation, he's got 6.5 sacks this season. He's somebody who's a real contributor on the defensive line. That's not somebody you can replace that cheaply. I mean, they went out and paid Charles Omenihu, who had never had 6.5 sacks in his career, a pretty decent contract, and that was still a bargain for somebody who can play inside and out and get after the quarterback a little bit. You value pass rushers pretty high as compared to off the ball linebackers, but yeah, I mean, I think you can make a really strong case for Drew Tranquill as well, just because of the leadership and the versatility he brings. I'd love to see all three of them back, frankly. I mean, I wouldn't be upset at all at that. I think Willie Gay Jr. is probably the least likely to re-sign, but again, a player that I really like and have high hopes for. I love this revisionist history, kind of looking back. I had to laugh on Twitter. This wasn't a question directed at us, but I just thought it was great. Eric at Master Chief KC tweeted, "In hindsight, Kadarius Toney lining up offsides is the reason that the Bills got a home game, and that is the reason that Bass was there to kick in the wind in Buffalo and miss that kick and keep the victory." This is the kind of the butterfly effect of the NFL. I love the logic and thinking there. As part of the script that whoever wrote it for the NFL this year, I had to make sure that it came down to a kick in Buffalo in order for the Chiefs to advance.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, the wind probably maybe doesn't just swirl the same. That lake effect, it affects the snow. Maybe it affects that wind too a little bit. Hey, it's, that Arrowhead wind maybe wouldn't have pushed it so right, Bill. So you get what you get. Yeah. Don't throw a fit.
Congratulations on your home game. All right. Going even further back in revisionist history, Hushpuk on Twitter said, "What if Chicago drafted Mahomes instead of Trubisky?" Now, this question has probably been asked a million times, especially probably in the state of Illinois. But would Mahomes be the same guy he is today if he was with head coach Matt Nagy in Chicago?
Oh man, wouldn't that have been a funny combo? I mean, that's the thing. Nagy would have loved that. He would have been jumping for joy like a little girl when if they drafted Mahomes. But no, the thing with Mahomes in the question is, like, we can all see the special competitiveness that Mahomes has when he is playing this game and the fire he has that, it really does come through in like a very, for the most part. I mean, I know we saw that the Bills game earlier this year where maybe you could say it came off in a negative way, but for the most part, his energy as he's playing, very intense, but in a positive way. And that's what probably does drive him to be as good as he is. Now, he has the arm talent that really helps. But to me, I think he would have been a special player either way as a quarterback. But he absolutely would not have seen the success he has had so far in his career. And I think he just got accelerated. Like, I think maybe at some point he would have been, no matter what, the guy that could lead a franchise by himself to very consistent playoff success. But I also think it got accelerated very fast where, maybe that wouldn't have been happening until like just now. It was happening the first time he took the field because this offense and this team. I mean, we are very blessed and this organization setting it up the way he did. It was a very special thing.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in draft success having a lot to do with the fit and where that player ends up. I do think, you can talk about the Bears. If Mahomes had been drafted by the Bears or by the Jets or by the Raiders or, the Browns, like, would he have been as successful? I really don't think he would have been. He still would have had some special plays and special moments, but I think the environment here, the coaching staff, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill. I mean, there's a lot of guys that helped Mahomes' development. Even, Chad Henne and Matt Moore and the people they put around him. It all starts with Andy Reid, and I think the mental side of Mahomes' game has developed in such a way that it's rare. he has a rare eye for the game, a rare mind for the game anyway, but I don't know that he would have developed in the same way or as well without the kind of intellectual stimulation and development that comes along with being in this team, in this environment. He's got some input. He's got some, candid feedback he can provide back to the head coach. It wouldn't have happened everywhere. I mean, if he was in New England, would Belichick have put up with it, or would he have tried to make him a more structured player? Andy Reid was great about letting him be himself and pushing him to do things, within the offense. And I think he came along a lot of the way he did because of Andy Reid. I'm not sure it would have been the same anywhere else. He still would have been fun to watch, but I don't know that he's a two-time MVP, two-time Super Bowl champion at this point in his career, 6 times in the AFC Championship game, the worst of which ended in an overtime loss. That's rare territory. I don't think the Chiefs would be – I know the Chiefs wouldn't be where they are, and I don't think the Mahomes would be either. I don't want to comment too much on Mitch Trubisky. I think he was probably a talented guy that got in a bad situation and never developed in the way that he could have. Well, probably not the best pick even at the time, given what you knew then. But at least for Mahomes and the Chiefs, it would have been very different.
Well, I think, though, comparing them is a point that is important to make about Mahomes with the competitive spirit that we all see, and like just how fierce a competitor is, how just, he lives in the big moment, he eats it up. Like, you can see that, and you can also see when the other quarterbacks don't have necessarily that same thing. Trubisky is an example. You brought up, we were talking about this earlier, like Jay Cutler. Like, that guy ain't winning Super Bowls. Like, we could have all guessed that when we all saw how he acted in Denver, and then when he first got to Chicago. Like, that guy was never going to win a Super Bowl.
I mean, Phil Rivers.
Yeah, I mean that. I would say he got the competitive fire spirit that, like, that's why they were probably so dang good all the time, and always lived up in the moment, just never won the Super Bowl. So I would say that's not maybe the. I mean, you can use it. I don't know. I think you can, but Trubisky, like that guy, you did not really see much of a competitive fire in him much at all. And I think he shrunk in the moment, and you could see it in his eyes. You see it now still. And I know you could say maybe he got ruined by his experience, but I think he was just never the guy, and the Bears just really screwed that up.
Yeah. Well, just like the Chiefs, we are on to the Ravens. Let's talk a little bit about the AFC Championship game. I think this is going to be a really difficult matchup. It sounds really messed up to say this in public. I know I'm going to take some heat for this probably, but the Chiefs in some ways are playing with house money. This is a very difficult season. A lot of things went wrong this year. They were clearly, had an issue at the wide receiver position that was, nearly fatal for this team. And here they are back in the AFC Championship game, going up against what most people think is the best team in the league, who've been blowing people out. Somehow they've managed to be the defending Super Bowl champions and the underdogs at the same time in this playoff run. And it's a really interesting spot for them to be in going into Baltimore. Tanner Pelzer asked, can 15 and company replicate the offensive success versus Baltimore? That Ravens defense is much better and healthier compared to the Dolphins and the Bills. No argument there that the Raiders defense is better. But what have you seen that gives you confidence in the Chiefs offense in this matchup?
Well, I mean, I'm confident in the Chiefs offense because they're in a rhythm. They have momentum. They all are feeling confident, and that's half the battle with what we've seen. The problems all year. It's all been mistakes. It's all been fumbling. It's all been drops. It's all been penalty. Like, if they're feeling good, if they're all feeling, like they are playing well, then, they're gonna be able to face off against any defense and give them, a fight. But my thing here, though, I will say, the Ravens defense is a completely different level against what the Chiefs offense maybe has taken advantage of these last few games. The Ravens don't have those weak spots, especially at linebacker. Roquan Smith leads that team, and is probably one of the best off-ball linebackers in the NFL. Makes a ton of plays, but so does Patrick Queen. Both of those guys make plays. Both of those guys will give Travis Kelce a much harder time when he's trying to find space over the middle of the field, or when they try to find space for Pacheco on either runs or passes. Those guys are not going to be as fooled, or is not going to be able to get even if Mahomes the offense generates a step on him with misdirection or something. Those guys have that kind of recovery speed that maybe the Chiefs haven't played at linebacker in a while. Because even Miami's linebackers were hurt, and I was on here, or you weren't with us that week, but I was on here saying number 45 for Miami was going to get exploited because he was a backup linebacker, and he did in that game. There's no exploiting. I mean, they'll try to exploit him, right? Obviously, and I'm sure Hall of Fame tight end Travis Kelce and Hall of Fame quarterback Patrick Mahomes are going to find plays and make plays in this game that take advantage of those guys, but it's going to be a lot harder. And it's going to take kind of everything else working perfectly too. And so that's going to be a lot harder, especially with safety Kyle Hamilton kind of patrolling the middle of the field too. That guy goes all over the place. He has incredible range. He's long. He can make plays. They have a lot of players over the middle of the field that can disrupt what Mahomes and Kelce have been getting going. And that's a recipe for the Chiefs offense to start sputtering again.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to be the team that leads the NFL in sacks. They have obviously a fierce pass rush, but there's not a lot of the traditional big name pass rushers, especially not from the outside.
Yeah, pass rush by committee.
It is very much a committee. They do have a Chris Jones like Justin Madubuike coming from the inside, who had 13 sacks this season. Jadeveon Clowney resurging in his career. Had 9.5 sacks this season. Kyle Van Noy had 9. Other than that, everybody else was, had lower numbers when it comes to getting to the quarterback, but they do it from a lot of different places. So it's going to be one of those games where it's going to test the pass protection in less obvious ways. It's not going to be a one-on-one matchup that they're going to be fighting, to give somebody help. It's going to be across the board. This offensive line has to work as a unit. And make sure that they're prepared for the stunts, for the for the blitzes and all of that.
Right, exactly. This team is definitely going to be more aggressive in their pressures than you saw Buffalo. Buffalo is and they've always been like this, and really they were forced to last night or Sunday night to be very vanilla, in how they were kind of playing coverage, not blitzing very much. The Ravens, they absolutely are a team that they don't have Wink Martindale anymore, who was the DC last time these teams played, and he is definitely like blitzing all the time. Like the Ravens were always one of the league leaders in blitzing, but this year the Ravens are only not that high. They're actually kind of lower on the list. They're lower on the blitz percentage list this year. So it's not necessarily and this blitz rate means more than 4 rushers, right? So that's the key. It's not necessarily about blitzing 5-6 guys. It's about blitzing somebody and then dropping maybe an outside linebacker out that usually rushes. They have guys like Kyle Van Noy, that's a very athletic guy that can get after the quarterback. So you'll see stuff like that. The Chiefs are very good at that, right, on their defense. So, we know what that looks like. But the Ravens are good at doing that kind of stuff. And so it's going to take the offensive line playing, up to standard, and above to keep Mahomes clean this game.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Where do you think they stand on the run defense in Baltimore? I didn't look at the numbers really closely, but I do wonder if the Chiefs can establish the run like the way they did against Buffalo, and make that be part of the answer here is to keep themselves balanced and less predictable.
Well, Baltimore, that's the thing, is they have like a good mix on the defensive line of Justin Madubuike's, who are like penetrating guys, but they also have Michael Pierce's, who are big stuffing nose tackles. Travis Jones, who, if any draft nerds from a couple years ago, he was he was one of my favorite draft potential picks for the Chiefs. He was a big guy from UConn, moves super well, but can stuff a gap. So they have guys a little bit, maybe even more than Buffalo. And then when you combine Patrick Queen and Roquan Smith as better gap shooters and can make a tackle for loss, it's not going to be as easy. And I would say, it probably won't. I'll tell you right now, it'll probably Baltimore probably won't let that happen because they truly have been one of the best defenses in the NFL this year. Probably maybe the best defense when Cleveland, when you factor in Cleveland, just could not get it done on the road as a defense. So yeah, I would say the Chiefs aren't going to be able to get going as well as we were last week on the road. They will have to kind of get it done through the air and kind of open up the run game a little bit, probably.
Just looking at defensive stat numbers as we were talking, if this is accurate, did the Ravens allow the exact same yards per carry as the Chiefs did on defense this year? 4.5 yards per carry against the run. They allowed less yardage, but they weren't really dramatically better than the Chiefs when it came to run defense. They're very, very similar.
Well, good, because the Chiefs' run defense has been very bad. So that's good.
there you go.
Good stat.
So we'll see how that plays out. I still think that if the Chiefs' offense executes, to get back to this question, can they replicate their success? They absolutely can if they execute the way that they're capable of. I don't know that it matters who's on defense. If Mahomes is doing Mahomes things and the Chiefs' offense is not making mistakes, they can play with anybody. Now, to Eric's question, EMH 1729 once again, the best strategy for Spags to shut down Lamar, and I don't know if he's talking about Lamar throwing or running or both, but Lamar Jackson is the one player that I would say the Chiefs should fear to some extent in this game. He's the type of player that can take over the game, that can gash the defense, for huge plays. He really is that offense for the Ravens. And so any strategic ways the Chiefs can address Lamar Jackson and that threat?
Yeah, my thing with Spagnuolo's game plan to defend Lamar Jackson is use a lot of man coverage, try to defend these receivers, because that's the thing is, like, he has good weapons, right? But it's not like these guys are, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, on the Bengals, or, maybe Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis, right? Like, Zay Flowers is a rookie. And I think Trent McDuffie is a very good matchup for him whenever they kind of match up in the slot. And then Jarius Sneed can own Odell Beckham on the outside, or if it's Nelson Aguilar at times. I know they have a few other guys, but the tight ends too. Like, Isaiah Likely's been a playmaker, but he's not like he's not the most athletic. He ran a 4.81 his 40-yard dash at the college combine. I think, or his pro day, I should say. I think that's the thing. I think this Ravens offense is very good, but I think this Chiefs defense has guys that can match up with their playmakers. And so if Spags trusts them and heats up Lamar with the rest of the guys, right? So if you're playing man coverage, that means a lot of times you maybe have that extra guy to rush or spy Lamar. I think that's the game plan here, and try to get the ball out of his hands quick or make him make decisions. But that's the thing is Lamar likes to take sacks. It's a very sack heavy offense. And it's not because of maybe the offense, because Lamar, I think, can sometimes hold on to the ball kind of long. So it's about getting after him and wrapping him up. And I think the best way to do that is to challenge his receivers and play a lot of man coverage and make them win on their routes.
Yeah, I think the question everybody's going to be asking is there going to be a spy, and who should that be? That's been Willie Gay Jr. a lot of times in the past. He's not necessarily healthy at this point. I don't know if he's going to play or not. So whether or not they assign a spy towards Lamar, I think they've got to play discipline and contain. You can be aggressive in the back end, but have your ends not get too far upfield. Have them not leave a whole side of the field open. I think you got to stay in your lanes and be prepared to funnel him into the teeth of the defense to the best of your ability.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this pass rush, I will say, that's something they had to do against Josh Allen too. And I was a little disappointed in how little they were able to just get off the blocks and kind of, chase down Josh or kind of just contain him from getting away. And so that's a big deal. If they're not able to do that again, Lamar can definitely have his way if he takes, those run opportunities. And yeah, it's going to be on the linebackers in the secondary to kind of make tackles in open space and not let him get going.
Well, there have been many times this year we didn't think the Chiefs were going to be here in this situation in the AFC Championship game, 60 minutes away from a Super Bowl. This is a team that has struggled. They've been through it. They've found their identity after not having one for a long time. But the vibes are good. The team's having fun. They're winning playoff games. Mahomes is Mahomes. Kelsey's Kelsey again. You can't help but be excited to see what happens this Sunday at is it 2 p.m. Central Time?
Yes.
In Baltimore. Weather shouldn't be a factor. It's really just David versus Goliath, and interpret that however you will. The Chiefs have a chance to go to another Super Bowl, and hopefully we're back here next week talking about just that, whatever the Super Bowl matchup might be. You can't look past the Baltimore Ravens. This is probably the best team in football. And if the Chiefs don't win this game, it's still, it shouldn't be a major shock to anybody. But it shouldn't be a shock if they win as well when you've got Patrick Mahomes, this defense, Andy Reid, and others. I can't wait to see what happens. I can't wait to talk to you all next week on the Out of Structure podcast with my guy, Ron. Thanks for the time, everybody. We'll talk to you later.